So in 2020, I started beekeeping. For all of you that are about to start and have your first year, know that the second year, your bees will most likely swarm. So I started in 2020. I was not part of the CCBA until a couple months later. I didn't do an education program. I literally was thrown into it with no help whatsoever because it was the year of the pandemic and nobody wanted to be near each other. So it was basically pick up your package, throw. Did anybody see my presentation of me throwing it in my eye? Yeah, you could tell I knew absolutely nothing.
Very entertaining.
It was great.
Very
Very
entertaining.
entertaining. So I got them in there. They did really well. The following year, a friend of mine got an RV, and I'm down in Virginia. We're RV, and we're sitting around the picnic table, and my phone rings. It's my neighbor, Donna. Your bees got out. I'm like, oh, first of all, they come and go as they want. What are you talking about? Well, they all just flew into my tray. So I have a house, a backyard. To the right of me are natural wetlands, and then I have a strip where my bees were at the end. My neighbor has a row of pine trees. She said she watched my bees fly from my hive and rest in there. So now my two neighbors, which both have children, her and behind her, are looking at this swarm. She's like, you gotta get here and do something. I'm like, I'm 4 hours away and the camper there's no way I can do anything to help you. So I got on the phone and I started calling people. By then I was a member of the CCBA and I went and I called people on the swarm list. And somebody came and got them, and he said it was the biggest swarm he had ever seen. He took them to Philadelphia and they swarmed again, they got out. So anyway, after that, I was like, I cannot let this happen again. The following year, when I got in and I recognized swarm cells, I was like, all right. The first year when I had done a split, not for the reason of swarming, Tim Ferriss helped me and he said, Donna, don't make this so hard. Just get in there, pull some frames, do this, that, you're done. I'm like, okay. Why would we split a hive? Some of the reasons are to be proactive prevention. Your hive is overcrowded. Swarm cells are present, or to increase your apiary size, just to have duplicate hives. If you notice any of these and you want to split, the first step, if you watched my presentation of installing a package, have your equipment ready to go. I can't emphasize this enough. Have your bottom board, have your entrance reducer, have your hive box, have your top cover, inner cover, have whatever you need there and ready to go. Because once you open up that hive, you're going to start moving. Find the queen. If you want to do an artificial swarm, you have to find the original queen. I'm not sure why they know the difference. It's the location or the smell of the box, but you can't move the swarm cells. If you go, I can't find my queen, you can't move the swarm cells and leave the queen there. They will still swarm. You have to find the queen and move the queen to the new box. So find your queen, move her into the new box with the nurse bees. I'm going to cover that in a little bit. Provide stores, make sure they've got a little bit of honey, make sure they've got pollen and nectar. You're going to kind of balance it out and leave them. So you're going to leave. This is where I'm going to ask George, Mark, or Carol. Do we want to leave eggs in the old hive or move them to the new? Because to me, if you really start thinking about things, you can make things really complicated. So if I leave the eggs in the old hive, and yes, and I want a brood break, I'm not going to get a lot of a brood break if I'm going to raise eggs. Is anybody following me?
So you're gonna move the queen out.
I moved the queen out. Should I move the eggs with her?
You gotta ask yourself, well, how am I gonna re-queen what's left, right? Am I gonna add a queen? Well, then you don't need eggs and larvae because you're gonna add a queen. But if you're asking them to make their own queen, then you need to leave eggs and larvae in there to make your own.
No, I'm saying in this case, I've got swarm cells. I got swarm cells. And if I want a brood break for the more complicated.
How many things you're doing at once? You can't do it all.
Right. Right, so I moved the queen, I moved the original queen, I left the queen cells. Do I want to get the eggs out of there so they'll have a longer brood break or leave the eggs in there? Because then
You want to take the eggs away from the queen or you want to take the eggs away from the old
That's what I'm asking you. What would you guys do?
Well, you're gonna get a brood break in one hive. You're not if you bring eggs and larvae over to a new hive, you're not getting a brood break with the
No,
queen.
but I would get it in the old hive, and that's what I'm
You'll get a
asking.
brood break in
If
the
I
other hive because you got 21 days for that, 18 for the queen?
But if I leave the eggs, you're not gonna get as long a brood break.
So,
Yeah, but it doesn't make a difference. It's still, you're still gonna have, if you have queen cells, it's gonna take 18 days for the queens to hatch. Well, if they were to swarm anyway, so just to say this, it could take 21 days for her to get mated.
Right.
So you got 21 days, it's 23 days for the workers to hatch.
Right,
So you're gonna get a brood break.
right. But it would be longer if I just got the eggs out of there and let the brood hatch out. That's my only point.
Your brood break will get pushed out because you'll have the eggs that are there that are not going to hatch, and then till the queen hatches, goes mates and comes back. So there'll be a time where you'll have those eggs that get capped and kind of emerge, and then so
Right,
you just
you're gonna
push it
get a
out.
brood break. My point is, if you move all the eggs out and you just let your brood hatch out, you're gonna get a longer brood break.
Did you tell them why they wouldn't have brood break?
So I'll get to that. So for those of you that have been beekeeping, you know what I'm talking about. A brood break, George talked about getting the drones out. The drones have a tendency to carry the mites because they're in their brood for 24 days, as opposed to the worker bees, which are only in there 21. So the mites like the drone brood. So I guess if we're talking worker brood, it doesn't, but anyway, you want to get a brood break because you want to have no capped brood in there. Once there's no capped brood, the mites aren't going into the cells.
Ed's got a question.
Ed.
It's not a question, it's more of,
Yeah, go ahead.
so when you make a split, unless you're moving that queen to an out yard or somewhere else like that, you don't put the eggs with the new queen. The queen can make her own eggs.
Right.
Because the foragers are gonna, that hive that you put the new queen in isn't gonna have foragers for a while, because they're gonna either go back to the original hive, and now you're leaving them with eggs that they can't get pollen, they're not gonna have foraging for pollen. The eggs stay with the old hive, because I believe the gentleman over there said that because the queen's gonna take so long to come back and get mated, that hive's gonna have foragers, that hive's gonna be able to tend to the
new
eggs.
hive.
The new hive with the queen that's laying doesn't need eggs. She can make her own eggs. But again, they're gonna lose most of their foragers until the new brood. You want to put cat brood with the old queen. So I personally would not put eggs with the new queen.
Okay, so cat brood with the new queen, the old queen, the new hive, the old queen, and then eggs with the old hive, unhatched or new
Leave
queen.
them in the old hive. There's
So-
no sense in putting it with the old queen.
I did watch one guy there, or a couple people, a couple videos that said if you really want to separate your foragers from your nurse bees, to take your new hive that you're making, once you make it, put a queen excluder on the original hive and put the new one on top. And they're gonna kind of put the nurse bees up with the nurse bees are gonna go with the eggs though, right? Or they're gonna go with the eggs. So do you want the nurse bees in the new hive or the old hive? This guy was saying put the nurse bees in the new hive.
If you're making a split like that's what's called where you're a couple days before you make your split, you're getting them to do the separation. That's a more advanced technique. Don't even entertain that.
Okay, so don't even worry about that.
Just find your queen with the frame that she's on, put her in the hive, shake a couple more bees in there, put a couple frames of food and brood in there, and then call it a day.
And that's basically what I did, because at that time, my experience level was
Yeah.
very little. I was only a year or two beekeeper. I basically found the queen, put her in the new box, split the resources, split the bees, split the brood, and made kind of an even split. Boxed it all up and let them do their thing, and that was it. I'm talking about the other stuff later. I think Howard is gonna talk about a demarree method, and this is how to also prevent swarming, but it's more of a honey production, whereas mine's gonna slow down your honey production.
Thanks. I agree with Don. You have to, and Ed, when you move that queen out, right, all the foragers are going to go back to the original hive, right? So you have to make sure you have enough food in your split, right? Because there are not going to be any foragers in there. So you want to take the queen, enough food, and ideally brood that's going to emerge, brood that's capped, that it's dark capping where the bees are going to come out, and they're going to be able to be young bees that are going to take care of the queen that's laying. No, I would leave leave the nurse bees and open brood with the original hive, take the queen, and at least 2 frames of food. I see people make splits all the time, and they forget about food, and then they leave the split with no food and no foragers, and they just struggle because they don't have any resources and they don't have foragers to make the split. Anyway, sorry. 30 seconds. Yes.
Can we still bring splits to the apiary?
Yeah, so we in the past, we've allowed people to bring nukes out to the apiary. If you want to make a split and take the nuke out to Cheslin and put it out there and let it mate and then come back and pick it up, you can do that, you know, and there's some advantage to doing that because you're not gonna have all the bees fly back to the original hive and you get the advantage of mating out somewhere else. So yes, what we ask, and I'll send that out soon that you can bring your hive out there, but we ask you to leave it no longer than a month, you know, because we don't want it to build up and end up being a huge hive out at the apiary, honestly. So you just have to be able to come back and pick it up in a month.